Today is August 9th, 2014, and we're in Vinita, Oklahoma to interview Attucks School alumni. And with me today is Charles Kirkendoll. Thank you for joining us, Charles. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin. Could you tell me where you were born and the year you were born?
I was born here in Vinita, Oklahoma, on West Tahlequah, Wright County.
And could you tell me a little bit about your parents?
My dad was Charlie Kirkendoll, and my mom was Severa, and they come from down around the lake area. I think my dad come from Ketchum, and mom was down by Pensacola down there. I'm not for sure, but they always say they come from the river, from the bottom. That's what they call it out there, the river. That's where she come from.
And how did they get to Vinita, Oklahoma?
Well, they come up this way in a wagon, and then they go back, and they come back, and they finally moved to Vinita before I was even born.
And what did they do for a living?
Well, Mom was, she was a housekeeper for a while. Then she went to work for Eastern State Hospital out there, and she retired as a dietitian cook at Eastern State Hospital. My dad, he started working at the laundromat. We had a laundry here in Vinita. It was right by Burkhalter's funeral home. The parking lot of Burkhalter was called Vinita Steam Laundry. He worked in there for a while. Then he left and went to Taft, Oklahoma to run a laundry down there for Taft. Then he come back and worked for a Glass House restaurant in Vinita. And that was it. And he come back from there.
Well, describe where you lived as a child.
I lived where we call over by Bull Creek on East Tahlequah. I don't know what block it is, East Tahlequah. But part of, the front of the house is still there. And then we moved from there to 24 North 3rd Street in Vinita. And that's where we was raised up at, on North 3rd, 600 block of North 3rd.
Well, on that North 3rd Street house, can you describe it for me? What did it look like?
Well, the house is still standing, and there needs some work done on it, but we're trying to fix it up now so we can keep it. But it was a 3-bed. Well, we had 2 bedrooms to start out with, and then we added on another room back, and then we had 3 bedrooms, and we didn't have any running water at the time, and we didn't have any lights. Then later on, we had lights, and then we had to heat by by wood stove in there, and then finally up to the years we got gas and light. But my dad used to go off and get coal, so they'd get a load of coal so we'd have heat during the day. We had to pack water. We'd take a bath 2 or 3 times a week, but we had to heat the water up the stove. And then my sister would be the first one in there, and then we'd change the water, and then us boys would get there. And then when the water get cold, we'd put another 2 kilos of water in there. And that's where we did coming up.
And where did you take your bath? What part of the house?
In the front room by the heating stove in the number 3 tub.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have 4.
And where do you fall in that? Are you the youngest?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest, okay.
There's 5 of us, because there's 4. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister.
Okay. So, being the oldest, did you have certain chores you had to do?
Well, we all had chores we had to do. My dad was, after he come back from Taft, we started raising hogs. And we had to go feed hogs in the morning before we went to school. Or either we had to do it in the evening, but in the evening we'd have to go around and pick up at the restaurant, pick up the garbage. So, and then we'd come and mix the feed so we could feed the hogs. At one time, I think we had around about 200 head of hogs there we had to feed.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot. And he was more or less, and then he raised hogs ever since we was big enough to remember, and hogs and chickens. We had chickens too, so.
Would you help butcher them, or?
We butchered they would butcher 2 hogs a year during the winter, so we would have meat for the winter. And that's how we got our meat. And they cured the meat in what we call the smokehouse. And they would cure the meat its own self and put boards up there and hang the hams up from rafters, hang them up, and bacon and stuff. And that's what we had for the winter.
Okay. When you're younger and you're growing up in Vinita, can you kind of describe the town for me? It is a small town, and where we lived on North 3rd Street was a dirt street. You couldn't, if it rained, you couldn't get up there. My dad had a Model T Ford, and if we would get stuck, we'd have to go up there and push it out. But it was small, and then we had to walk to school, rain, shine, or snow, and we walked the mile every day to go to school. But then the show, we had 2 shows, but on the show, we couldn't. On the swimming pool, we go once a week. They opened up a swimming pool for us later in the years. At first, we couldn't go. We'd always go what we call Bull Creek. We swim in Bull Creek. And when it rained, we would tie a rope on the inner tube, and water would be rushing down through there. And we'd get on this inner tube and jump on and let us ride down the wave, and then the one would pull us back. They'd pull us back, and then the other one would get on and ride down there. That's what we learned how to swim in Bull Creek with the snakes. What else would you do for fun growing up?
Well, we'd take a stick and make us a tea out of it, and we'd take the little metal rings off of a bicycle, I guess, or it was a steel ring, and we'd take that and roll it up, down, and play in the dirt and shooting marbles. And then we'd go over, where this guy had a pasture up there, and we'd go up there and play ball in the pasture coming up.
And going back to the hogs for a second, where would you take it to market?
He would take them to the sale barn and sell them.
Okay.
Right here in town, yeah.
Well, you mentioned you walked a mile to school every day. What were your dates of attendance at Attucks?
We couldn't afford to miss school because Mom made us go to school. We had to go to school every day. We did not miss school.
And what year did you start at Attucks?
Well, good gracious, I don't know what year. I finished in '56.
Okay. And did you start in the 1st grade? Or?
No, we went to primary first, then the 1st grade.
Okay. So, describe the building for me at Attucks.
Attucks was 1, 2, 4. We had 4 rooms. Because the first, 1, 2, 3, 4. We had 6. We had 8 rooms up there. Well, it was 2-story because we had to go up the stairs. And the first and 2nd grade was downstairs, and then we had a music teacher, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and then we had a history teacher was upstairs, We had Mr. Ryan as a science teacher. He was upstairs. And we had a home ec teacher upstairs. And then we wasn't playing basketball. Then we'd sneak out and go home at 3 o'clock. Well, the principal would make us stay home, make us stay in school. And then he said we was going to learn how to do something. So he took all his boys and sent us to home ec class. So we learned how to cook and sew. I made a jacket, and she taught us also how to sew buttons on a shirt, which it did come in handy in the years later down the road.
That's interesting. What do you remember about the cafeteria?
We didn't have a cafeteria then. We never did have one. We carried sack lunch.
Okay. So what types of food would you bring with you to school?
We'd bring apple and orange, and peanut butter sandwich, or if it was school, we had what we call lunch meat of bologna and cheese and crackers. And we carried sometime in a brown paper sack because we didn't have a dinner bucket till later on.
You ever trade with your friends?
Sometime we did.
What about the auditorium?
Auditorium was connected with the basketball, with the gym down there, and it's still there. And we had a wood shop there too. They finally built us on a wood shop in the back of the gym back there, and Louis Ryan taught us how to make. We had to make stuff, tables and stuff.
And what about the library?
Library was upstairs, and we didn't use it till, well, I didn't use it till we got probably in I'd say about the 9th grade.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the teachers you remember. You mentioned Mr. Ryan. Tell me a little something about some of your teachers.
Mr. Bly, he was S.A. Bly. He was the principal, and he made sure that we got our lesson. And I remember quite well that in algebra, which I did not like algebra, and he had a raggedy book, I would say it was tattered, and he wouldn't use the one that was given us. We thought we would use that one, but he gave us one out of his book, and he gave you different problems. Then you work this, and then you tell him how you got the answer. Now, if you didn't get that, well, I guess he had a big long stick that he'd just whack you behind with it until you got it. We got whoopings in school with a paddle.
Really? What would you have to do to get a whooping?
Well, we'd get in fights, as usually kids do, or we wasn't getting the lessons. The lady that taught us English, that we didn't get them, well, same thing that happened in the arithmetic room too. If you didn't get them, we got so many licks. Because he really prepared us for going to college when we got up there. And I told him my folks couldn't afford college. He said, "You don't know that." But he made sure that we got our lessons every day. We was well taught at that school. And Mr. Ryan, he was the basketball coach too, and he taught history, and he also taught us biology there too. So, but I really liked his biology, and we didn't. You get him talking about basketball, we get out of class so we wouldn't have to take the test. So he said, "Well, y'all got me started for an hour, but tomorrow y'all gonna take this test. Thought you got out of it today, but you will have it tomorrow, first thing in the morning." At 9 o'clock we would go his room. We had to, before we would go to class, when we got in high school, 9, we all gathered in the principal's room, and we had a poem to say, a motto to say, and then we had to say a prayer every morning before we left the way out of class. And I think that helped us a lot.
Do you remember the motto?
No, I can't think of it. I need to find that too.
Any other teachers really stand out in your memory?
Mrs. Olmsted, a lady named Miss Hardrick, she taught us, she was a 4th grade teacher. And Mr. Olmsted, she was the English teacher. When we was in the 4th or the 5th grade, we would take tests, and we also had to recite a poem. And at the end of each semester, we had to at least say 3 poems. We had to memorize them. Or else we got paddled. We didn't. But, and Mrs. Ford, I can't think of, we had 2 Miss Fords was in the homework room, and she, after we stepped out of school for not playing basketball at 3 o'clock, he sent us up there he said, you all gonna learn how to do something that'll help you in your life, is learn how to cook and sew. And so that's what we did. And the first thing we did, we made cookies when we went up there. So we was well taught at that school.
Teachers cared.
That's right. They really cared us. Mm-hmm. If you get a whooping at school, we got a whooping when we got home.
Was it quick to spread? Did your parents know when you walked in the door you got in trouble at school?
Yes.
How would they find out?
They would, Mrs. Daisy Barker was a friend of my mom, and she would tell them that we got in trouble. And my mom would check periodically at school to see what kind of trouble we was in. And if it did, one of the teachers would go tell them that we was in trouble. Because one day we was going to be late to school, and we decided to crawl under the train. And when we got to school, somebody had called and said the kids had crawled over the train and under the train to get to school. She's scared that we could have got ran over, so we got a whooping there. And then when we got home at 8, we got another whooping. So we had to stay out of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Close-knit community.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Would teachers ever visit your home?
I think, I don't remember, maybe. One would come periodically because, like I said, her and Mrs. Barker, her and my mom was great friends. They grew up together.
Are there any did you celebrate any special occasions in school?
Oh, we had celebrating, graduation when we had a community building down, which is, the building is still standing at 2nd and Delaware, which is Head Start school there now. But every Friday night we would go down there, and that's where all the kids would socialize. And somebody had kept the building open for us because we had dances down there on Friday nights, sometimes Saturdays. And that's the only place that we had to go.
Okay. Would you have regular school dances?
Yes. On Fridays.
On Fridays. Who would you take to the dance, or would you just show up?
Well, we just showed up.
Mm-hmm. What type of music did they play?
God, I don't know. I can't answer that, but it was mostly, I don't know, can't say.
Okay.
But I know they played a lot of blues and I really don't know about what kind of music coming up back then.
Okay. Did you play basketball?
Yes.
Tell me about that. Who were your opponents?
We was in Dewey and Bartlesville, Claremore. There was only like 6 schools. Haskell and Redbird. We played them. Pahuska, Dewey, Bartlesville, Claremore, Redbird, and another school.
And who would you consider your biggest rival?
Pahuska.
Mm-hmm. What were some of those games like?
Some of them was pretty good, and some of them they just beat us. But you know, he said, well, we did the best. He never did get on us, but he made us run all the time. Of course, we played run fast, but he would put us in, get our belts off, and the ones in front. If he's close enough, then you hit him with it. So you had to run to keep from getting hit on your back end.
So practices were rough.
Practice was rough.
Mm-hmm.
We run up and down the stairs too, and the seats. We run up and run down. And he'd say, well, first thing he'd say, well, give me 10 or 15 laps today. And that was every day.
What position did you play?
Guard.
Mm-hmm. Are there any basketball memories that stand out in your mind?
No, not really.
Would a lot of people attend the basketball games?
Yes. The gym would be full. Some of them would go travel with us, but Mr. Ryan had a car, and he carried 10 of us, and we all sat in that one car. It was set back and up and sat on the edge, and we had to switch every once in a while. And he would put 3 in the front with him. The rest of us had to get in the back seat. Mm-hmm. It was crowded, but that's the way we traveled.
Mm-hmm. And what were your uniforms like?
Uniforms was just like regular uniforms, back what they have today.
Mm-hmm. And your colors?
White and blue.
Okay. Were you involved in any other clubs or activities?
No, last year when they integrated, my last year, we come up here and we would leave school and go up there. They told us we could come up there and play football. So Mr. Ryan said that we'd go up there and play football. And he said, you all are getting behind. You up there playing football, but you ought to be down there playing basketball. So he said the ones that playing football was going to be behind, because he said he hadn't done picked out his daughters, so we had to catch up when we got through playing football.
And you played at Vinita?
Yes.
And how was that for you?
It was all the first year was up there. I just played with 1 year football, and their coaches was really nice.
Okay. Or were there any other school employees that you could recall that may not be teachers that had an impact in Attucks?
We had Edgar West, so he was the janitor, and he also was a barber too, so, and he went to school there too.
Well, how did you learn that Attucks was eventually going to be closing?
We had to go to a setting. No, we all had to go in the principal's room that morning, and he told us that I was in 55. The next year high school would be going as integrating, and they left the grade school down there for a year before they transferred him out of school down there. Mm-hmm. They transferred to the other school, to Vinita Public School.
And how did overall the community feel about integration?
Some of them thought it was going to be bad, but a a lot of them thought it was the best interest for us to go to school up there. They had more things going on at the other school than we had down there. We didn't have a band or anything like that. And then later down the years that I got it really acquainted. Well, the principal got sick and I helped take care of him, and I got to ask him about how come we didn't have a band. And he said, you needed lessons more than you did a band. Mm-hmm. He said, you didn't need one. Mm-hmm. He said, your education was more important than it was to be playing in a band. Mm-hmm. So we never did have one.
And it took a while from the time the ruling came down for Vinita to integrate their public schools. How did the community feel about that?
They thought it would be kind of bad, but it didn't. But it worked out. There wasn't any problem. I can say there wasn't any problems with going to integrating the school.
Tell me about graduation day.
When we graduated, it was only 4 of us that graduated, and we all had dressed up in black and white. We had black pants and white coat, so it was only 4 of us, and that was. In that school too, we had perform a play too. We had plays about twice a year, maybe more than that, but we had plays that we'd go to.
In the auditorium?
Mm-hmm.
Would the students perform in the plays?
Yes, that's what it was all consist of, the students.
Mm-hmm. Would you take part in acting?
Everybody had to take part.
Ah.
Everybody had to take a part. If you was in, I think in high school, everybody had to take a part. And I think the 11th and 12th grade especially, they had to take part in that.
So there were 4 who graduated with you, 4 total. Mm-hmm. You remember who they were?
Yes. There was Lewis West, Lewis Liggins, and Charles Swain, and 3 of us is still living today, and Charles Swain just died last year. And he went to Detroit and worked at Ford, and he became a preacher while he was up there. Then Lewis Liggins, he worked at Ford, he retired, and then Lewis West, he joined the Air Force and retired from the Air Force.
Well, when you graduated from Attucks, what did you do?
I went to work at the Glass House restaurant, making about 51 cents an hour. Then we got a job working on bridges construction. And then sometime doing that, there was a man named Charlie Swain had a trash route, and we hauled trash for him when we got paid $25 a week. And then I went to work at the Glass House.
And was the Glass House a big community gathering place, or would a lot of people go through there?
There's a lot of people that travel through there and they stopped. At one time, they had a snack shop, had a cafeteria, had a gift shop, and they had a regular cafe. You go in there and order dinners. But they had a real cafeteria style. We go in there and just go through the line. Buffet style, that's what it was. I worked out there, and I also worked out there worked at the bakery and cooked out there too. That's where I learned how to bake. Was out there. I never will forget it. The lady named Annabelle Southern. She run that place out there, and she taught us, and she put us down there and put me down there and baked with another guy, and we made all the pies and the rolls down, and dinner rolls too down there. And then after they come in and shut it down, and they started so that it was cheaper for them to buy the pies. They come from Dearborn, Michigan. It was cheaper for them to buy them. Well, we quit making.
And then what would you go on to do?
Well, I ended up getting married at 21. And because I was, well, we was going, I will say we was high school sweethearts. I started going with her, and then we ended up with a kid.
How did you meet your wife?
She stayed about 100 feet from us. We all grew up together. I think I ended up going with her. She was 15, I think 16. She probably don't remember, but I do.
Where would you go out for dates?
Well, I had a car, and we would go to the movies, and we'd go to Bowling Springs, which we call it Prior Creek. We'd go to Knollwater. We'd go to Boysville. Sometimes I'd go to Chautauqua, Kansas. And they had a place up there they called the Leaning Tree. It was just they had a jukebox just about as big as that stand right there. And they had just a platform and a jukebox. And a tree was leaning over, and that's where we would go, Chautauqua, Kansas. And it was great. We had great times coming up back then, because that's where we traveled to, Boysville, Knollwater, and Claremore, and Chautauqua, Kansas, and Bowling Springs. I would go to Bowling Springs every Saturday night.
What would you do there?
Well, we'd go out there, and well, they had a music out there, and couldn't buy any beer out there at that time. But that's where we went every Saturday night. We was at Bowling Springs. And they're still going today. People go out there, they more or less, they have the boy out there, he has a rest. Well, they cook out there too. A lot of people from here goes out there to eat supper in the evenings. I think they open on Fridays and Saturdays. So they go, he has fried chicken and barbecue ribs out there.
How many kids do you have?
4.
4 kids.
4 kids and 6 great grandkids. Let's see, 4, 6 and 6. 6 grandkids and 6 great grandkids.
Wow. Holidays must be fun. Looking back, 1950s, 60s, Vinita, are there any places in town that really come to mind, black-owned businesses that were really important in the community?
Down on South Illinois, where the Blossom Shop used to be, Clanton's Cafe was there. And that was all down there. We had kind of like a motel. She had a room down there called the Riders Hotel. She had rooms down there. But that's where all the black businesses was down there. I don't know too much about them. And Clanton's Cafe, they had a room in the back. And that's where we went. That was the only place where we could go. In the back, we'd go in there, and then we'd go in there, and they had salt shakers. They had 4 booths back there. And you go back there and bang on the table, and somebody come back there and wait on you.
How do you think your education at Attucks compared to the white students in Vinita?
Well, there's a lot of difference now. These kids have a better chance to go to school. Because when I was coming up, and like I told Mr. Bly's principal, that he said, you need to get your lessons. I said, well, my mom and dad can't afford me to go to college. He said, you don't know what you can do. You go get them. But at that time, we could only go to Langston, I think in southwest Missouri. I think that's Lincoln. That's what in Missouri up there. I don't know the name of the town, but I think it might have been Lincoln, but that's where because a friend of mine went to college up there. But that was the only two places that we had to go, and I said, well, I'm not going to go to college. I kind of wish I had. Then later on, I told her that I was going to go to Old Muggyville Tech, which I never did. But I wish I had her. But we ended up here. My wife telling me I won't never move. My kids gets after me because I move close to them, and I said, well, I've been here too long now, so it's my will stay. So, but when I was looking for a place, looking for a job, I was looking for a job to retire on. So, but I didn't. But I retired here from the city of Vinita as street commissioner.
How long were you working as street commissioner?
16 years. I was on the council for 6 years. I worked at B.F. Goodrich for 13 years, and I was on the council. I was the first black to get on the council. And then when the Goodrich closed up, and then the guy told me that I would run for street commission, and I did, and I won. So I stayed there 16 years. And when I got beat out, I only lost by 24, 26 votes.
That's close.
Yep. I had one election that it was real close, and by 4 votes, I think, and it never did change. The guy put up some money to have a recount, in which I ended up with 2 extra votes. That was the closest one I had.
Well, when you first ran for city council, how did you decide you wanted to do that? How'd that come about?
Oh, some guys was talking and said that they wasn't hardly doing anything up there. And I said, well, why don't you run? And he said, no. I said, well, I'll run. And he said, well, you won't get any place. I said, well, we'll see. But I did. I stayed on the council for 6 years till I got the street commission job.
And how would you campaign?
I'd go from door to door, walk from door to door.
A lot of walking and a lot of knocking.
Yep, a lot of talking.
Well, I understand there's an Attucks School reunion every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, we was having it every 3 years, and Leonard Hardwick and a lady named Oklahoma, they come in and started it, and he was the president for so long, and then after that he decided to quit, and I said, well, as long as I'm living, we will still have Attucks reunion. They just want to do away with it. Until this day, we'll still go in, and the next reunion will be next July in 2015. And after he quit, I took over. That's where I said that I said, well, as long as I'm here, we'll always have Attucks reunion. And I said, we started this and don't let it die. So we're trying to get the younger bunch, this what we call the sons and daughters. Last 2 years we voted to let them come in, and so that we will have somebody to keep it going with this, to not let this die, just keep it going.
How many alumni come back for the reunion?
Well, all of us is slowly dying off. But last year, I think we ended up with 60, or I think we had 68 or 70 something. We usually used to have 100. It always stayed 80 to 100 every year, every time we'd have one. And but this last one, I think we had about 65 or so. right now, I don't know how many we'll have this time. Because that's when I come we wanted the younger bunch, like my daughter and them, to join this so that we can keep this going, to not let it die. And we finally got it. They're talking about getting it on the historical site. So another lady, there's two ladies that got together and they said they would help us get it on the historical site, and we did. When my wife and I had another girl named Linda down there and went to Oklahoma City to put it on the historical site, and we put it on there. So we're in the process of trying to get a room down there at Attucks School to put maybe building stuff in it now. We haven't got all of it. We don't have nothing in that room now, but hopefully by next year we'll have something in it so people will have something to look at. But they come every year just to see what the school looked like. And that's where we register at they come in and register at the school down there.
What else happens during your reunion?
Well, we'll have a business meeting on a Saturday. Well, we have a picnic in the park that Friday, and then we'll have a meeting that Saturday, and then we'll have dinner and a dance and a program Saturday night, and then we'll have church Sunday morning. All the churches, we have two churches here, and we'll all come together and have it at one. And we'll have a dinner on Sunday, and everybody leave and go home. But it's really a chore because we only have about 8 to 12 people that's in this to get this all started and get it together. It's a lot of work and a lot of running in it when you just have a small group of people.
Well, you mentioned you helped get the school on the National Register of Historic Places. How'd that come about?
Well, we was talking one day and they said, well, we would like to put this, since this school is old and we don't have anything here to remember by, but the school, we decided to see if we could get it on the historical site. And there was two ladies that got it started, and we had to go to the school board and ask them. We was trying to get it and they okayed it, so that's how we come up with it.
What's going on in the school today?
There's nothing going on in the school today. It's used as a storage place now in the back for food distribution to the schools. That's what they're using it for down there now, but it's empty. There's a church that wanted it, but I don't know what they're gonna do. So, but they said that we can still have our room down there and do whatever they want to with it. So.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to share regarding Attucks School?
No, not really. All I can say down there we was well taught at school. But he got us prepared to go to college. He was ready to go to college if he was going any place, because they made sure that we got our lessons. And we really enjoyed it down there. I don't miss it. There's something to remember, that's for sure.
Well, what's one thing you want people to remember about you?
Well, I don't know. I got into politics and I tried to do the best I could. When I was street commissioner, and I worked sometime at night, the other boy, named Jackie Johnson, he was the water superintendent, and they couldn't get a hold of him, and they would call me, and I would get up at sometime 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to go get him and call some guys in and come because we'd have a water line break. My wife would tell me, "That's not your job." I said, "Well, I'm going to get up anyway, so I might well go help them." So that's what we did. But it was quite a deal. I enjoyed it working for the city, and my mom, she told me, "You don't need to get into that." I said, "Well, we're going to see. And you have to do what they tell you to do." I said, "Well, I think I have a choice to do what I want to do." So it was quite a joy in there because I didn't get to do really what I wanted to do. I didn't really have the money and equipment to really work with. All I did the best I could do. And I really enjoyed it, what I did, because I figured like as of today, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I told them that all the streets in Vinita should be, as of today, every street in Vinita should have been blacktop. They're getting better now, and they're doing so much a year, so it's getting better. We don't have the industrial here like we need to, and they're extending the runway out here too, so that's going to help out Vinita, so they can get the smaller jets come in. But I really enjoyed working for the city of Vinita.
So you've made an impact on your community.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
No, that's about all I have to say. My girl that lives in Claremore, she always called and asked me something about the city and what they was going to fix their street down there. And I said, "Well, don't let them put no blacktop there." They had cement in there. And well, now I said, "Make them go back." My youngest girl called me from Florida this year. They've had their first ice storm and they couldn't get around. And she says, "When my dad was street commissioner, he would have his guys on the back of the truck shoveling out sand." And I said, "That's what they need to do down there." She said, "Well, you ought to come down there and look at this. They just put a scoop here and there." And I said, "No, them guys had to throw it across, put it out there and sling it out there," because I said, "That's what we did." And then finally we got a salt spread and stuff, and that's what we did. And that would have, if it snowed, we worked around the clock, 24 hours. We had different shifts.
Got to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Got to keep our streets safe.
But it was really, I enjoyed it, and I still try to keep up with the city to see what they're doing. I thought about, I said this year, my wife said no. But I said, if this guy runs for mayor, I think I'll put mine in the hat just for the hell of it.
You never know until you try.
Getting too old for that.
I don't know, Charles. I don't know. Well, I appreciate you taking some time out this morning to.
Well, I appreciate y'all doing this.
All right. Well, we'll let you.
It's been real interesting.